Hi there, it's Colette, and in this episode today, we're going to delve a little deeper into the doshas. So we're all familiar with Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which are made up of the 5 elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth. Well, did you know that each one of these has 5 subtypes or subdoshas? And we're going to delve deeper into those today. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host Colette, and in this podcast I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now here's the show. Hi there. So it's a solo podcast with me, Colette, today. But before I get started, I want to tell you about a very special date in the calendar. And actually, it will be on the day after this episode airs. This episode will come out on October 24th. And on October 25th, it's World Ayurveda Day. This day is going to be really special. And as I said, it's celebrated throughout the world, and it coincides with Dhanvantari Day, the holiday which honors the father of Ayurvedic medicine. Now, this special day celebrates Ayurveda, and it's also a reminder for all of us to respect and to preserve this ancient wisdom and to spread these wonderful teachings around the world. So happy Ayurveda Day, everybody. And for any events that are happening throughout the world, I'll post them in the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group. And I'm using this podcast to share these teachings freely throughout the world. So I hope you find this podcast helpful. And please, as I always mention, please share the episodes. And I think the more we spread it, the more people can get in touch with their true nature and thrive in life with this wisdom. So thank you for listening and for supporting the podcast. Now, another note before I start today's podcast, I want to mention that I have my online 28-day group daily habits for holistic health course starting October 25th on Ayurveda Day. And I'll talk more about this later in the podcast because it relates to what we're discussing today. Now, if you're listening to this episode after the October 25th, don't worry because you can actually take this online course privately at any point throughout the year. So I'll put that link in the show notes also, or just visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and check out the programs tab. Okay, so let's get into today's episode. I always talk about how Ayurveda is as deep as the ocean, or it's like an onion. You peel back the layers and there's more. You think you have it, and then there's more depth to it. It's just an amazing science. So today we're going to delve a little deeper into the doshas. Now, of course, we're all familiar with the doshas of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and the fact that they're comprised of a combination of the 5 elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth. But today, we're going to look into the subdoshas. So Ayurveda further categorizes these doshas. And in particular today, we're going to look at Vata. I decided not to do all of 15 subdoshas in one episode. It would just be information overload. So we're going to focus on the Vata subdoshas today. And then in other episodes, we'll do the Pitta and the Kapha subdoshas. So getting starting with the Vata subdoshas. Vata is the only moving dosha, and its subdoshas are followed by the word Vayu, which means air, and it's used in place of Vata when discussing the subdoshas of Vata. So we know that Vata is comprised of the space and air elements, and it's responsible for all movement and inspiration. And to help Vata carry out its responsibilities are its subdoshas of Prana Vayu, Udana Vayu, Samana Vayu, Apana Vayu, and Vyana Vayu. Now we're going to go through each of these 5 supportive subdoshas and break them down a little bit. So Prana or Prana Vayu, remember Vayu is used in place of Vata. We understand Prana as our life force energy. You've heard me talk about that a lot in the podcast. And Prana Vayu extends from the diaphragm to the throat, and it includes the area of the lungs, the heart, the tongue, the nose, the ears, and it's also located in the brain. Now, Prana Vayu is responsible for inhalation, ingestion of food, for coughing, and for sneezing. And you can see that Prana Vayu is located in many of the sense organs, and Prana Vayu governs the senses, taking the sensory information and bringing it from the outside and moving it downwards into the body via sensory stimulation. In fact, there is no sensation without prana. The flow of prana begins with awareness, and this awareness becomes sensory perception, which then becomes sensations in the body. And these sensations then become feelings, which stimulate thoughts, and these thoughts then become our emotions. So therefore, Prana Vayu determines our perception of the world, and it governs the mind, the heart, and consciousness. And if we can control our prana, we can control the mind. And here, of course, we think of pranayama, breath control, or energy control as it's known. So I've talked a lot about these breathing practices of pranayama in the podcast. And Prana Vayu, as we said, is responsible for inhalation. Now, pranayama is the most effective and simplest way to calm the mind and the body. And I've told you about my pranayama tutorial before. I'll add it again here in the link in the show notes. It's a short video showing you how to do these pranayama techniques and which ones are good for each dosha type. But Prana Vayu is also responsible for the nervous control of the heart. And when Prana Vayu is imbalanced, it can manifest in heart palpitations, breathing problems, weakened senses, and confusion in the flow of prana. And this confusion can lead to a lack of awareness and confusion with the thoughts and the emotions. And it can also lead to physical and psychological imbalances. So again and again in the podcast, we talk about the breath and breathing practices. And just in my previous podcast, number 102 with Ayurvedic doctor Victor Briere, he mentioned again the importance of pranayama, and that was in relation to pitta burnout. But it is so important, this energy control, this breath work practices. So please check out that free little tutorial I have, and I'll attach it in the show notes. So please check that out. Okay, so now moving on to the next subdosha of Vata, and it's called Udana Vayu. Now this one is an upward moving energy. So remember, Prana Vayu was an inward and downward moving energy. Udana Vayu is an upward moving energy, and it's mainly located in the diaphragm and moves upward towards the lungs, the throat, and the brain. Udana Vayu is responsible for the movement of the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles between the ribs, and it aids in exhalation, so that moving outward of the carbon dioxide. With the movement of the air through the vocal cords, it's also responsible for speech and self-expression and enthusiasm for life. Udana Vayu energizes the brain and memory by moving oxygenated blood upwards, which also gives us a glow to the skin. If Udana Vayu is imbalanced, this can manifest in speech problems like stuttering, and it can also manifest in difficulty in exhalation. It could also result in poor memory recall and indecisiveness. The lack of upward moving oxygenated blood to the brain can also cause a dulling of creativity or self-expression or a direction in life. And also this blood flow gives the glow to the skin. Therefore, an imbalance of Udana Vayu can lead to a lack of glow or luster in the skin. So that's Udana Vayu. And next we're going to move on to Samana Vayu. Now, Samana Vayu is located in the area from the diaphragm to the navel and is centered in the stomach, the small intestine, the liver, the pancreas, and the spleen. This energy moves from the periphery to the center, and it's related to the process of digestion, and it kindles our digestive fire or agni, creating hunger. It controls the secretion of the digestive juices. So if we track the food intake, Prana Vayu, the downward moving energy, which was the first subdosha we discussed, is responsible for ingestion. And then Samana Vayu receives the food and moves it via peristalsis, the movement through the intestines. It controls secretion of the digestive juices, it governs digestion, and it separates the nutrients from the waste. So back in episode number 92, where I discussed the Ayurvedic nutrition of the dhatus, I went into detail of how the food is taken into the body and then broken down into this 5 elemental juice. If all our food is made up of the 5 elements, this 5 elemental juice is created after digestion. So if you want more info on that, check out episode number 92. But getting back to Samana Vayu, so now we have the 5 elemental juice, and Samana Vayu is responsible for absorbing and assimilating the nutrients from this elemental juice. And an imbalance in Samana Vayu can result in a lack of appetite because you don't have the digestive secretion stimulating appetite, poor digestion, malabsorption of the nutrients, and it can lead also to indigestion. So that is Samana Vayu. Okay, let's move on now to Vyana Vayu. And Vyana Vayu is located in the heart, and it circulates throughout the body as this energy moves from its seat in the heart to the periphery and corresponds to the circulatory system. It also maintains cardiac activity like muscular contraction and relaxation. And it also maintains nutrition as it circulates the 5 elemental juice, which Samana Vayu helped to form. And now Vyana Vayu helps circulate this nutrition, this 5 elemental juice, via the rasa dhatu, that's the plasma or serum, and the rakta dhatu is the blood. Dhatu means tissues, and again, if you're not familiar with those terms, go check out episode number 92, Ayurvedic Nutrition of the Dhatus, where I go into detail on all of that. So an imbalance in Vyana Vayu will manifest in circulation problems throughout the body, a lack of oxygen in the blood, perhaps palpitations, and that could lead to panic or anxiety attacks. So that is Vyana Vayu. And then finally, we're moving on to Apana Vayu. Apana Vayu is located from the navel to the anus, and it's in the pelvic cavity, the pelvic organs, and the colon. Now, this energy moves downwards and outwards, and we've mentioned this a lot in previous episodes, as it's responsible for inducing labor and assists with childbirth. So we've discussed it in those 3 episodes I did with Ayurvedic Dr. Meenakshi Gupta on childbirth and pregnancy. So that's why I wanted to cover these subdoshas, because we have talked about them in past episodes. So like I said, Apana Vayu is responsible for the downward and outward movement therefore inducing labor, assisting in childbirth, for menstruation, elimination of feces and urine. It's also responsible for the movement of the sperm and egg, and is responsible for conception. Apana Vayu maintains the tone of the tissues in the pelvis. Now, if Apana Vayu is imbalanced, it can manifest in constipation or diarrhea, a lack of menstruation, hyperactive bladder or incontinence, pain in the lower lumbar spine during the menstrual cycle, perhaps in a prolapsed uterus or rectum, and can lead to sexual problems, conception problems, and problems during labor. So Apana Vayu is all that, again, downward and outward moving energy. So you can see that these 5 subdoshas of Vata, let me just repeat them for you. Prana Vayu, which is again, the movement of energy inwards and downwards, responsible for ingestion and inhalation. And then we had Udana Vayu, which was the upward moving energy, and that is responsible for exhalation. And then we had Samana Vayu, which is energy moves from the periphery to the center. And this is responsible for digestion and kindling our Agni or digestive fire and creating hunger and controlling the secretions of the digestive juices. So that was Samana Vayu. Then we had Vyana Vayu, which is located in the heart, and that circulates throughout the body because this energy moves from the heart to the periphery. And then finally we had Apana Vayu, which is the downward and outward energy of Vata. So you can see now we've broken down Vata into certain regions of the body. And if you feel in listening to this information that you may have an imbalance in one or more of these subdoshas, and this kind of helps you break down as to what region and what energy or subdosha is affected, I would advise you to have a private consultation and get a detailed strategy tailored to you, a holistic strategy on how to balance your dosha, your subdosha again. Now, in a lot of previous episodes, I've talked about balancing Vata. And in order to give you some information today, the simplest way for you to balance the Vata dosha is via your dinacharya, your daily self-care practices, which include pranayama, very, very important, that breath work, meditation, yoga, abhyanga, that's the oil, the daily oil massage. These are so important to manage these subdoshas. And as you can see, keeping these subdoshas in balance is so important for our overall health. And if you want more support around this, I do have that Daily Habits for Holistic Health online course. It's 28 days online, self-paced, but we're going to do it in a group format so we can support each other and hold each other accountable. This is starting October 25th, but if you've missed this group start date, don't worry. You can do it privately at any time, and I'll put the link to both of those in the show notes. What we're going to focus on in this Daily Habits course is understanding the daily energy cycles of the circadian rhythms and how to structure your day and your life to flow in tune with these energies rather than going against them and suffering. And we're going to implement daily self-care practices that are in tune with those as well, those circadian rhythms that are in tune with your lifestyle. And not adding more stress to your lifestyle, but just implementing these very simple daily self-care practices to make sure that the Vata subdoshas are calm and in balance, and make sure they're not going to become aggravated. And also in this course, we're going to talk about the mental qualities, the mental gunas of tamas, rajas, and sattva, how to recognize if they're imbalanced and how to bring them back into balance and make sure that you're not having any aggravation there. I'll also teach you on how to become your own healer with a simple foundation teachings from Ayurveda on how to work the gunas and the principle of opposites. And finally, we talk about the power of intuition, positivity, compassion, how you are in the world, how you are in your neighborhood, and so on, and in your relationships, because of course all this affects your health and well-being. Now, in this course, you'll also receive a daily webinar. There are short webinars every day. You get worksheets, you get online support from me, and we also have a Facebook community, so we can all support each other doing that. So implementing a daily routine of self-care practices helps us to be in sync with our environment, creates greater energy, happiness, and well-being by keeping our doshas in balance. And these particularly pertain to the Vata subdoshas, because it's all about movement, and we move a lot in our world nowadays. So we really need to be sensitive to keeping these subdoshas in balance. So check out the link in the show notes, or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. Go to the events tab for the group course if you want to start October 25th, or if you've missed that deadline, just check out the programs and you can take it privately there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, happy Ayurveda Day, and I appreciate your support with the podcast. If you feel that this information will be helpful to friends or family, please share the information with them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so you can get the episodes automatically downloaded every Thursday to wherever you listen to your podcasts. And come on over and join the Facebook group, the Elements of Ayurveda Podcast Facebook group, where you can ask questions and you can be part of that community. Thank you so much. I'll be back soon to cover the subdoshas of Vata and Kapha. In the meantime, take good care of yourself, be well, and ciao for now.